Livio Benchick is an AI engineer who is currently head of AI at Mindsmiths, where his main responsibilities include leading and coordinating the development of the Mindsmiths platform, a technology used for creating autonomous support systems. So let's give a warm round of applause for Livio.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. So hi everyone, I'm Livio, head of AI at Mindsmiths, and today I would like to share with you something we've been cooking in our lab. So basically for the past 5 or 6 years or so, I was very frustrated with what a terrible human being I am. I have tons of friends I have not contacted in years. I've probably lost many friends that way, and I'm completely ashamed of it. I have not exercised in months. My physical health is probably worse than my grandma's. My mental health probably as well. I don't remember the last time I took out my fiancée to a romantic dinner. I recently got a puppy. I have no idea how to raise a puppy. I'm just flying blind, hoping she survives, giving her food, and, well, she's alive for now. If I had kids, I would probably do the same, and I think we can all agree that's a terrible thing to say. Can anyone relate to any of this? Yeah, okay, great, I'm not the only one. So I guess we can agree that being a human being is pretty hard. So there's all these things you have to keep in mind, all these things you have to spend your time and energy thinking about, doing, figuring out. And so I have realized that there are basically two types of things that drain the most of our energy. First, there's like these simple, tiny things that you always have to keep in your mind, think about, remind yourself about, and then do them. Things like on the left side here, so exercising, calling your parents, checking up on them, cleaning your apartment, paying the bills, etc., etc. And then there's these complex things that you have to invest a lot of time and energy to figure out how to solve. For example, raising a puppy, working on your career, investing your money, stuff on the right side. And let's be real, nobody has enough time or energy to invest in all of these areas, so we end up terrible human beings. The sad or the good thing is all the knowledge is out there. So whatever you want to know, you can just Google it, and you get tons of information about it, but that's just it. You get too much information about it. Here's my puppy. She's still alive. No, she has not learned that sleeping position from me. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, the same phenomenon is actually happening in the app features too. There's like tons of these features, and unless you're like me, and I'm the person that when you install a new app, I first go to settings and then check out what's there. I guess I'm the only one doing that. But basically, yeah, most normal human beings don't do that, and there's 97% of features that no one uses, but that could be of help to them. So the average human being, that's not me, doesn't need more features. They need, well, actually, I too need guidance. So something that guides me through the process of whatever that is, whether it's raising a puppy, raising a kid, working on your career, whatever. Something that tells me, do this and that now, you'll do this and that later. Oh, you did that, but if you did this, then you could be something better. Or in your place, I would do this and this, so give me some helpful advice. So that's guidance. And if you're super rich, you're in luck. because you can pay for guidance. You can have a private team of doctors always thinking about your health, thinking about how they can help you, how you can prevent sickness, and so on. You can have a private banker that's investing your money. You don't have to bother with that. It just keeps growing. Awesome, right? You can have a private teacher for your kids. You can have the best mentors and teachers for yourself, which also means you have more opportunities. You have someone paying your bills, someone making sure you invest in your relationships, all that stuff. And I just want you to take a moment and imagine yourself being super rich and having all of that and how your life would look like. Just take a moment, imagine you're super rich, you have nothing to worry about, and you have all this time, you can invest in the things that matter to you, and you have all these new opportunities. Who would want to live in such a world? Hands, come on, come on. No one. Well, I would. Okay, there are some people who want to be rich. Good for you. So like I said, the knowledge of these things, the expertise of these things is out there, but it's either passively waiting on Google or not scaling enough. These private doctors, teachers, investors, whatever, they can't cover the whole world, and that's why only the super rich can buy those services. So I was thinking, if we could just somehow put this knowledge into this new cool thing called AI, then we could scale it basically immediately to the whole world, because we have these distributed supercomputers. We can just spin up more of these, and then suddenly everyone in the world can have private nutritionists preparing their meal schedule, private teachers, mentors, whatever you name it, in an instant. So I joined the AI community to saw like, what's the status with this? Surely everyone is working on things like that. And I saw cats versus dogs. I saw text, image to text. I saw optimizing ad revenue. I saw recommender systems. Okay, they're actually the only useful thing here, because all of this other stuff is crap. Except if you're not worried about ethics, then this here is good. And the occasional chatbot lurking in the darkest corners of AI. Now, my initial reaction was, oh my god, this is so boring. And I just think that we've been building this, if we can call it AI, the same way we've been building software for the past, I don't know how many decades. Like passive tools, waiting for someone to go there, pick them up, use them, hopefully gain something worthwhile of knowledge. These things can't care, they can't guide, they're missing something. They're missing a spark. They're missing autonomy. They're missing life. Because for AI to be alive, it needs to be able to see the world. It needs to be able to act in it autonomously, interact with it, get feedback from us, learn from it. And only if it's alive can it guide us. So that's the mission I set out to do. And this shift from tools AI to agents AI is actually already happening, very slowly, but it is happening. And I personally believe that it's opening a new era of how we interact with technology. It's a different way to actually design products. It's a human-centric way. I'll show you an example later, and I hope then it sets down. You've probably heard the term agent, autonomous agent, in a specific area of AI. Can anyone guess what that area is? Is anyone brave enough? That's right. I guess those of you familiar with reinforcement learning have seen this diagram many times. Now, an agent is an entity that can observe an environment. It's constantly observing the environment. It can perform some actions in it, and in order to achieve some kind of a goal. What is important here is precisely this loop that's happening. Observing the environment, acting on it. Observing the environment, acting on it. And that's something tools don't have. They wait for something to go and turn them on. Something else is different in this diagram than the traditional reinforcement diagram. I don't think you're gonna you'll be able to figure it out, so I'll just tell you. On the right side, there's usually a game on it, not a physical environment, real world environment. And on the left side, there's usually a virtual character like Pac-Man or whatever. On this slide here, we have a Roomba and we have a room. Now, just a tiny note, the environment doesn't have to actually be physical. It can also be virtual, but in the real world. So, for example, an agent can talk to us through, I don't know, WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever. It can add things to our calendar, write to some Google Sheets, whatever. But, you know, interacting in the real world. Now, technically, there's no difference between a game and the real world. But the semantic difference is all that matters, because here we have something interacting with us, something that's interacting with things that matter to us, so it can be helpful to us. Games are good and fine and all that, great for entertainment, but they're not really helpful. And I like to think of myself as a practical person, and I like to solve real problems. This is great. For example, I have a Roomba at home, and the first day we got it, we named it. It's called Albert. Later on, we found out it has a female voice, but it stayed Albert. What's funny about it is when you have this thing, I set up the automatic schedule and whatnot. It's really nothing fancy. I don't believe it has any fancy AI in it. But when you have this entity in your life and you see it turns itself on, goes out to clean your apartment, and then it gets stuck on the carpet. Like, you have this feeling of, oh, poor Albert, let's help him, he got stuck. And this is exactly the kind of emotional connection and the helpfulness agents can bring us versus tools. Now, I like to go deep into theory of things, into core of things, how they work. So I have tried to observe the world through this lens of agents. Now, there's lots of agents in our world, from Roombas, my puppy, us, even to institutions. For example, this conference is also an agent on a higher level of abstraction. We have been receiving emails from it, we have been getting information, we have been some kind of a communication. Our government is also taking all kinds of actions, and we're talking about the government is doing this and that. So all of these things are agents, and they're interacting in various kinds of ways. Okay, so often what we can observe is that these agents join in, for example, we humans join in communities, in families and larger communities. And formally, we can call this a multi-agent system. Okay, we have finally made it to the term multi-agent. That was on the first slide. Now, in this multi-agent systems, they're constantly evolving. So our human multi-agent system has been evolving for thousands of years, And we have included in it various kinds of plants and animals that we have domesticated. All this in order to increase the efficiency of our systems. Now suddenly we don't have to go out and hunt for these things. We have them at home, and then we can plant the seeds and eat all year without having to move. Nowadays we also have these brands or institutions offering all kinds of services, and they are also agents that make our life easier. For example, if I'm bored, I'm gonna go on Netflix, and they're gonna solve my problem of boredom, and I'm gonna get some entertainment, hopefully. And it's exactly the collaboration of all of these agents that's determining the quality of our life. Now, I care very much about the quality of my life, so that's important to me. I don't have to worry about what I'm eating because I can order food. I don't have to worry if I'm safe because I have a roof over my head, a lock on my door, and so on. All of these things have been taken care of me by other agents. The result is that I have much more free time than my predecessors had. So this is something that we have been talking in the beginning that we want to optimize. Okay, great. Now, the basic problem of these systems is resource allocation. For example, doctors. No country in the world has enough doctors so that each one of us can get private health care. No country in the world. So that's a resource allocation problem. There's too high a need with too few resources. And if we want to get to the world that we imagined, we have to solve this basic problem. Few are, I already told you, few are rich enough to pay for this, so we have to find a solution that's scalable. The only way to increase the world's efficiency by such a degree is to introduce more agents. And if we don't have enough humans, then we'll have to go digital. We have to create digital agents, finally. Imagine every person on the planet having a personal agent. The only task with that agent is to make life easier for that person. So, pay my bills, teach me things, guide me through raising a puppy, whatever. I can also have multiple agents. I don't care if it's one or if there's more of them. Here's an example of how such a product could look like, just to give you something a little bit more concrete. So this agent suddenly out of nowhere sends me an email. Hey, you have not contacted your friends in a while. You're gonna lose them. Just spend a minute and call them. And I would really appreciate if I had such a pretty simple thing in my life, and just something that I don't have to go and turn on. I would like to show you an example of a project that we did with Magdalena Clinic in Croatia. And we focused on hypertension. Why? Because it's a very, very common chronic disease, so it's high blood pressure. And when you have hypertension, you are basically constantly sick. And that's an awful feeling. I don't have hypertension, but I have IBS, so I know what I'm talking about. You're basically constantly sick, 24/7. You're in fear of what's happening now. Do I need a doctor? Do I need an ER? How will I feel tomorrow? You're constantly sick, and the only time you feel okay is when you're with your doctor for this 20 minutes that you get with him in a year. Now, we all know this story. This is the ideal world. This is something we're striving for, but the real world looks like this. There's not enough doctors, there's too many patients, and if you ask any doctor, feel free to do so, they'll tell you patients with hypertension are the most boring patient of them all, because there's tons of them, All of them have the same thing, and they have to play this guessing game of find a combination of lifestyle changes and pills that will have helped this person. And it's boring for them. And there's tons of them. So let's see what we did here. This is a sketch of our solution. So in our solution, like I already mentioned, everyone has a personal agent. And there's three types of agents. One is for patients, one is for nurses, and one is for doctors. Maggie, how we called the patient's agent. Maggie is the one who guides the patient through this process. So, look, this is what's going to happen. We're going to measure your blood pressure 3 times a day. I'm going to save this information, and then I'll send it to your doctor, and then we'll see what he says. If the blood pressure is extremely high, Maggie is smart enough to know that she should send the patient to the ER immediately, because that's the protocol. If your blood pressure is higher than, I think it's 180 over something, you should go to the ER immediately. Now, the nurse's agent is nurses have a higher role in this than you would imagine. They are basically the gatekeepers to doctors, and they can handle more. They can handle most requests, and they are handling most requests. Whenever a patient feels scared, they call. Hey, I'm feeling bad. This and this. I was just running, and I have this pain. And they can, in most cases, just say, okay, take this pill, relax for 15 minutes, and then we'll see what happens. So this repetitive process can be automated, and this is exactly what the nurse's agent is doing. So these agents can solve between themselves these most common cases. And when they cannot, when they encounter an edge case, they ask their human counterpart, hey, this is what's happening, I don't know what to do, can you help me? Okay, this is what I should do, okay, thank you. And they can learn from this feedback, so they're constantly improving. The doctor's patient is doing the same, but there's a more complicated magic going on there, which I won't go now into. Oh, what I forgot to mention is that the cool thing about these agents, so why does everyone have their own? We wanted to do that because of personalization. For example, my grandma is a very worried person, and she would very much like to measure her blood pressure every single day and get the reassuring message that you're fine. My grandpa, on the other hand, is not at all like that, and he doesn't want to be bothered. He'll check his blood pressure once in a few months and be done with it. So that's why everyone has their own, so that these agents can adapt to you specifically. Because if you're super rich and you pay a private doctor, they're gonna adjust to you. They're gonna see what level of information you want to know, see what you need to know, so they don't scare you, and so on and so on. Also, each agent has this loop that I mentioned earlier. We call it heartbeat. On each heartbeat, it wakes up and thinks, hey, what can I, with the information that I currently know, what can I do for my human? And this is how we imagined our agents to look like. This is how it looks like in practice. Now, don't be fooled by the chatbot look, because that's just a communication channel. And like I said, these agents are living in cloud. We use Azure, if anyone's interested. And they can do all kinds of things. They can add things to your calendar so that you don't forget, or contact other agents, gather information for you. For example, Maggie could generate these pretty looking graphs, which we designed with doctors. And from these graphs, they can then get much more information about what's been happening with the patient. But, sorry, more on that later. Now for the results. Despite this being a very simple pilot project, it had incredible engagement. So from the 78 patients we had, 74 remained active each and every day measuring their blood pressure. This is, I think, 95% engagement, which I have never seen in any of the projects I have ever worked on. And this was 12 months of testing, so it was a very long period. But that is not the only thing that we've observed. We have also observed in our when we were researching this problem that the average examination lasts for 22 minutes. And of those 22 minutes, 15 minutes is the doctor asking questions. Hey, how have you been? What's been going on? How much pain were you in? How many times you went on the toilet yesterday? Whatnot. So for 15 minutes, and this is the state of the art for gathering information. So every patient with hypertension gets this paper, and they fill their blood pressure each and every day, and then they can give this to their doctor. Hey, here's what's been happening with me for the past N months since I've been here. Now, when we asked doctors, okay, what can you see here? How does this help you? They all said, it doesn't. We don't look at that. That's just for patients to feel like they're doing something. Yeah, don't tell anyone with hypertension. Now, this is the graph from earlier that Maggie generates from the data that she receives each and every day. And so we designed this with doctors, specifically in mind to help them make the decision, is this person in a critical state, in a bad state, or is this person in a controlled state? And in which part of the day are they feeling bad? Why? Because these patients often have 3 different treatments. One in the morning, one during the day, and one in the evening. I'll show you a slide of that later. So this is basically a treasure trove of information compared to these paper cards for the doctor. So we can shorten this time, this 15 minutes of acquiring data, to 4 minutes. Now, if you do the math, that halved the total time of the examinations, from 22 minutes to 11 minutes. That's a 100% increase in efficiency of examinations. But we did not stop there. So this is another visualization which helps to determine if the therapy is working or not. There are three periods of day. The left part is before the therapy, the right part is after the therapy, so we can clearly see here that during the day and in the evening, the therapy is working and the patient is feeling better. This therapy adjustment cycle was previously 6 months long. 6 months you were feeling bad for each and every day. Your heart was pumping, you were sweating, and now it's 3 weeks. Why is it 3 weeks? But well, it basically doesn't get any less than 3 weeks, because you have to try out one medication, see for a week whether it works or not, and then change it a few times, and that's it. Since the doctor has an immediate insight into the patient's state, he can react much faster, because he doesn't have to wait for the patient to come again to him personally, for him to acquire the information, how have you been, and then change and set another appointment 3 months later and see whether it worked. So that's why this works. That's why it went from 6 months to 3 weeks. This is a visualization of the number of visits to a hospital by these patients. So there were 148 visits to a hospital. Why? Because every patient, whether his blood pressure is controlled or not, is required to go for a control examination for every 6 months. That's also the same with IBS, if you were interested. This is a visualization of which of these examinations were needed. So the green ones are patients with regulated blood pressure. There's basically everything okay with them. 31 of these examinations, 20%, were for patients with unregulated blood pressure, and they needed a therapy change. But they couldn't get a therapy change fast enough because all of these other patients were clogging up the system, waiting in queues, wasting their time, the doctor's time, everybody's time. So there's a lot of inefficiency there. What Maggie can do for you is slice all of this green stuff out, because she's the one who can now determine whether the patient is okay immediately and tell you, hey, everything's fine, don't worry about it. You don't have to go anywhere, just live your life. And the doctor has suddenly much more time to spend on the patients that really need the care. Now, if you do all of the math, so we reduced how long the examination lasts by 50%. We have reduced the number of examinations by 80%. You get to a number that slices the doctor's time spent to 10%. So it's a 10x improvement, 1,000%, if you will, of efficiency of this system. So the doctor can suddenly handle 10 times more patients in the same amount of time. And this is with patients that have hypertension. Our dream is for everyone to have their doctor. And this can be done. Why? Because most regular people don't have hypertension. So there will be a lot more of these green dots. So the doctor's efficiency is actually 1,000 times, 10,000 times more. He can handle 10,000 times more people and give them adequate care. So that was Maggie, and we have other projects too, in education, in e-commerce, in banking, in telco, everywhere. Here you can see Frankie. Her task is to help students build better careers by informing them of these events and workshops happening where they can network with important people. She's reminding them to update their CV, stuff like that. However, we as Mindsmiths can only build so much projects. We're basically the bottleneck, and we want the whole world to use this methodology and build this amazing stuff. So we're going to need help. How do we do that? In theory, anyone can build multi-agent AI systems. In practice, the technology barrier is pretty high. The implementation of a digital universe, believe it or not, is not trivial. I like to compare it to autonomous driving. So all of us have this picture when we're thinking about autonomous driving. Oh, so there's this vehicle, we have these cameras and sensors, then we put a huge neural network between that and the wheel, and we have autonomous driving. Yeah, sure. In reality, this is actually closer to the truth, and the same thing is true with these agents. So the system has to be extensible, flexible, robust, scalable, whatnot. So what we started is with the basic framework. A framework where we can implement simple agents, simulate them, very similar to the Conway's game of life, if you have ever seen that. And then we have improved on this engine, and over time, And after a lot of mistakes, the engine got more powerful and flexible, so we're now offering it as a platform. And you do need coding knowledge to use it. Why? Because we want it to remain flexible and so on. Feel free to contact us if you're interested. If you don't want our platform, we can give you tips on how to build your own, because we don't care about the platform, we care about building these products. There's also examples on GitHub and so on. But even though building the platform was fairly complex, building actual products is actually very, very simple, because a lot of the requirements are solved by the paradigm itself. And this is a very interesting thing to observe. For example, this system here is by default flexible and extensible. Why? Because you add another agent and you have another feature or another whatever you want, use case. Or add a custom integration or a pre-built integration. We're building lots of pre-built integrations to make life easier for these developers, so that these agents can connect to your calendar, your email, your WhatsApp, whatever. Now, sorry, each of these agents is simple. If it's not simple, you can break it down into multiple agents solving the same problem. That's also a great feature to have. It's easy to reason when you're developing this project. So I'm a programmer and I care about this very deeply. You know, when you have 1,000 things you have to connect together and you have these 5 different contexts that you need to keep switching in your head, here you don't need to do that, because when you're building an agent, you're just seeing the world from that agent's point of view. What do I want? I want to make life easier for my human. How do I do that? Okay, I'll try to keep pinging this service until they answer. I'll connect with these things that my person cares about, and there's only this limited context that you have to work with, and immediately your development process speeds up. Also, these agents can evolve independently. If you care much more about the doctor's agents, you can work more on it, and so on. This system is by nature distributed, so we can scale horizontally. It's much more robust than traditional systems where you have, I don't know, a monolith that keeps breaking all the time. So there's all these quite nice features about this paradigm which I wanted to share with you, because I think they can help us develop software in a different way that might be more efficient. Now, since we love guidance so much, we're also writing down all the best practices we have discovered in our mission to build amazing products, and we're sharing them on our docs and on our Discord. For example, we have these 3 principles when we're building any kind of agent. First, they need to have the expertise so that humans trust them. They need to show that they're personalized, that they're not giving me some generic advice. They're giving me advice that's relevant to me. And third, they need to show they care. How do they show that? Because they're proactively letting me know, hey, I found this. I think it may be important to you. You may want to check it out. Or, hey, I saw you're doing this manually each and every month. Do you want me to do that? And so on, so on. Aside from these principles, we also have tutorials, how-tos, and more theory about this if anyone's interested. So feel free to check it out, contact me, whatever. I hope you have found this interesting, and I hope I got your imagination flowing. We're building the future we want to live in, and I hope you join us. Thank you.
Livio, thank you so much for guiding us through your amazing new project. Since you have exceeded your time, you don't have time for questions,
Sorry.
but I'm sure they will definitely find you somewhere outside. So just give us a few minutes to set up for the next speaker and give a warm round of applause once again for Livio.
Thank you.